Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I am not Sabrina. I'm Kevin. Obviously, I'm not Sabrina. A little bit of a different format this weekend. Sabrina's off on vacation. She is somewhere where she does not have access to the internet at the moment. So we're gonna do this a little bit different. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna do it solo. We're gonna see how it goes. And already, I want to give as much kudos as possible to all the solo podcasters and YouTubers and everybody who has done it, who does it regularly, because this is weird. It is very strange to get started. I don't know where to look at. It's really weird looking at just a camera and talking. But we're gonna see how it goes. So we're gonna just jump right in here. We're gonna start with our race recap, our weekend recap, like we usually do. F1 is finally back. So we are back on track. And this week we were in Zandvoort, in the Netherlands. Another Max Verstappen home race. So Sea of Orange that was out there. And then as we're going through here, we go through FP1, FP2, not a lot's going on. And then FP3, we have all kinds of on fire or on track fires, literally. Not all kinds. We have one. We have at the end of FP3 or in the middle of FP3, I can't remember exactly what it was. Logan Sargent red flags a session to completely destroys his car. They save the chassis, which they were very big on assuring us that the chassis was fine, that they weren't going to have only one car racing again this week like they did earlier in the season. But yeah, he comes out of a corner for some reason, I don't know why, just decides to ride on the grass. Grass was, I believe it was raining earlier in the day, maybe, possibly. I could be wrong about that. Either way, it's not for good when you're riding on the track on slicks. Or sorry, on the grass. He goes through the grass and he completely spins out and destroys it. Wheels off, fire starts, debris all over the place, completely red flags the session. And this is first thing in the morning. And then his team has to try frantically to get his car repaired so they can get him out for qualifying, which is in 3 hours later, whatever it is. Spoiler alert, they did not fix the car in time. They tried, they were hopeful, especially because the chassis was fine, but he did not participate in qualifying. So we go into qualifying, and this also sets out a bunch of other rumors and speculation that we'll get into when we get into the news. But we go move into qualifying. Qualifying, it's pretty interesting qualifying, this one, actually. We go through FP1, not a lot of surprises. The only real surprise here in FP1 is, if I can get to it, not a lot. Ricardo out in FP1 in the 15th spot. You'd think he would have done a little bit better. Both Haas's actually make it out of P1, or I keep saying FP1, out of Q1 and into Q2. And Q2 is where things really start to get interesting, right? So we only have 19 cars running. So obviously Sargent's out. And when we get into Q2, out in Q2, we have Hamilton, we have Sainz. Gasly actually makes it through into Q3. Sainz makes it. Hamilton and Sainz, don't make it out of Q2. This is all a little bit jumbled here because they have an issue in after qualifying, but Sainz out, Hamilton out, big shockers there. Not sure what had happened in that session, but they just barely missed out, barely by a tenth of a second. So we have our our regular running of Q3, and in Q3, again, another surprise is both Stroll and Alonso are into Q3, where you would normally see maybe one. I would have thought that Alonso may have made it into, ninth or 10th. But Alonso actually gets into, here it's 6th, 7th, sorry, 7th. And we have also Albon makes it in to Q3, which was another surprising one. He had a great run. He had a great couple runs in obviously Q1 and Q2. And then in Q3, he actually makes it into, I believe it was, because it's different here. Yes, sorry, he actually makes it up into 6th place, 7th place, 7th place. No, sorry, 8th place, excuse me. So great showing for him. And we have a Lando Norris pole. Now, a Lando Norris pole was great. I loved it. I loved watching it. He was quickest around the track most of the weekend. And then he was just flying. There was nobody was catching him. Max came in, second last runner, basically made it into first. And then you just see Norris going purple, purple, purple. And as we know, purple is always fastest sector. He wasn't purple in the first sector. He was purple in the last two, and takes that. And pretty handily, actually, surprisingly, by about 3/10 of a second, I believe it was. A third of a second, he makes it through. So very impressive for him. And then we have a little bit of drama. Signs actually, and a little bit of drama. So we had earlier in the session. I think it was Q2. There was some minor impeding by Hamilton on Perez. Was he impeding? Yeah, he was impeding a little bit. But the first thing that Perez did was get on the radio, call Hamilton a complete idiot, a 7-time world champion idiot. I'm pretty sure, they showed the replay. He was going as slow as he could possibly go. It's just he ran out of room. Not necessarily his fault. It's just bad circumstance. But, as they said on the broadcast, impeding is impeding. So Hamilton's called to the stewards afterwards, given a 3 grid place penalty for that. A bit harsh. Now, impeding is probably just a 3 grid place penalty. But, I mean, for the type of impeding, how it happened, it was a lot. It was excessive, especially Hamilton starting in 11th. It was a little unfair, in my opinion. But it is what it is. That's what the way the stewards had it. I guess they're being fair across the board. We'll go with it. Whatever. And then we have Albon, who gets called to the stewards randomly out of nowhere. They checked the car after everything was in Parc Ferme. As you know, Parc Ferme can't touch the cars; they get inspected, whatever. So he gets called to the stewards, or the team gets called to the stewards, and it shows that he is running an illegal car. I can't remember exactly what it is here. I might actually have it pulled up here. That the floor body was found to be outside the regulatory volume. What regulatory volume means, I'm not sure. Is it too wide? Is it overweight? I'm not exactly sure. Was it running too low? That the plank was kind of run down. Again, not exactly sure, but either way, it was outside of the regulations. So he actually gets disqualified for this session. Which, I mean, you got to feel for Albon. He runs this great qualifying. He's on a great flying laps in a car that shouldn't be doing it, really. And somehow, and this is on the team, I believe. I mean, I don't think it would have anything to do with it unless it was something that he did to destroy the car, which I don't think it was. The team's got to get it right. The team's got to get it right for their drivers, especially when you can put out a showing like that. So really kind of felt bad for Albon there, getting basically cut off at the knees. So he's starting in 20th. Actually, he gets technically out qualified by his teammate because he gets disqualified, and he ends up in 20th. which, as we see, because he ends up in 20th, Magnussen takes a penalty for something. I'm not even sure what it was. I just didn't notice it until until we got to the race. But he ends up starting in the pit lane, so he's technically 20th. Albon starts in 19th, and Sargent out in the 18th spot. So that's basically it for qualifying. That's all we had. Again, just a little bit interesting with who got kicked out in Q2 and Albon being disqualified. And we get to the race. Now, a little bit nervous for me watching the race, because if you've watched the season coming up, or up to this point, excuse me, Lando Norris has had 4 poles this season. He has never converted a pole into a win. So, a little shades of Leclerc there. So it's kind of a little shaky. Also, kind of a weird stat that they had. Not that it's not necessarily weird. Lando Norris has never improved on his place from where he started. He's never finished. Actually, yes, he has, because he finished higher in Miami. He started in 5th, and he finished in 1st. But otherwise, he's usually either finishing exactly where he is or a couple places below. So this race, it seemed like this race start was going to be a bit crucial. We get to the race start, and now, we're watching Max. He's lining up, ready to not take out, but he's aiming a little bit to the outside. He's on the inside line, and he's trying to cover off Norris. Lights go out, and Norris gets an absolutely horrible start. I don't know if it was the McLaren's cars, because both McLarens got a horrible, horrible start right out of the gate. And Max is just gone. But he's got a clear window to the first corner, and then he is a second and a half away, and it looks like it's just going to go from bad to worse for Norris. He gets out horribly. He's getting fought from behind by, I believe it was Charles Leclerc, or was it Russell? Excuse me. Sorry, actually, it was Russell. So he gets he's in a little bit of a fight, but he gets to hold on to second. Luckily, he gets to hold on to second. And Piastri's just under fire as well from Leclerc. And that's kind of the way it stays. There's really no other incidents. We have Magnussen that runs wide a little bit, just a little bit late braking, kind of misses his corner, goes into the gravel. Nothing of really any consequence there. And we don't have much of anything until we get to about lap 18. About a little bit earlier than that. We can see probably from lap 10 or 12, Max is on the radio. He's got a 2-second lead at this point, maybe a 3-second lead. And he's just complaining that his tires are not holding up. He's got no grip. He doesn't have the pace. So he doesn't have the pace for it. And you can see Lando is just killing it. He is closing that gap as quickly as possible. He's taking that 2-second lead into a second and a half, 1.2, down into DRS range. And then by lap 18, we get down to the main straight, and that's it. And Max, he passes him with ease. There's not a battle. We're not going through 3 or 4 corners there, where they're fighting back and forth. He gets away. He gets into the lead there, and that's it. There was really nothing else to talk about because that was the biggest point in the race, and it never changed. It didn't even get close for the rest of the race. Max absolutely had nothing. He gave it everything he had, and he had nothing to show for it. So much so that Lando ends up winning the race by 22 seconds, the largest margin of victory we've had all season long, which is crazy to say because you figure that the Red Bull would have something close to that, but they've had nothing like that all season long. And even just to show, how far away they were, Max is 22, almost 23 seconds behind Norris. Leclerc's only 3 seconds behind Max, right? And Piastri's only 2 seconds behind Leclerc. It's a really close margin. And for some reason, Norris is just way ahead in the clean air. Nobody was going to catch him today. So much so that even when he had a pit stop, he didn't have to worry. They could take a slow pit stop. They took about 3.2 second pit stop to change into hard tires. At that point, it was already several seconds ahead. Max had already tried to pit earlier. He was comfortable. He got out, couldn't even see Max on his way out. And that was it. And then we go through the rest of the race and we get a Lando win. There wasn't too much going on when we talk about the race. I mean, we had a few battles. We had Gasly and Hamilton that had a pretty good couple battles going through some corners. Sainz and Perez were actually pretty good. Hamilton for his, qualifying in 11th, getting pushed down to 15th, I believe it was. That was a starting place. Was able to make his way back into the points, back in 8th. Pretty good drive from him. Russell dropped off quite a bit. He dropped off three places. Alonso, Stroll also dropped off. Gasly had a great weekend. He was really driving the wheels off that car this weekend. He started in 9th. He finished in 9th. So good on him for keeping that position in a car that's really not that great. And then even Sargent was able to, push himself up into 16th. So, I mean, for as bad as a weekend, Saturday that he had, he didn't have a horrible Sunday. Not that you noticed him anyways. But that was it. I mean, there really wasn't a lot once we got through lap 18. Not much had changed. There hadn't been a lot of battles. There wasn't really a lot to talk about. Wasn't really a lot to show for it. This was, I believe they said, the 6th or the 7th race where we had no real incidents. We had nothing to talk about in terms of, safety cars. We had no retirements. All 20 cars that were on track finished the race. And I think this is the most it's ever happened in an F1 season, which was strange. It was, everybody ran the race. One interesting part they had was Magnussen. He qualifies into Q2, qualifies at 14th. And then there's one point where he gets overtaken by 4 cars in total. That midfield is really close together. He was passed by Ocon, Albon, I believe. Ocon, Albon, Stroll, and Alonso all at the same time. So pretty funny to watch there if you see the onboard being overtaken by four cars and one straight. Probably why he's never gonna drive again in F1. But that was it. Pretty short race recap. Really, the most interesting part of this weekend was a lot to do with the news. We get into the news here, if I can pull it up properly. So we get into the news. One of the things, the big things came out this weekend. Liberty Media has decided that they're going to start to sell away about 10 million of their shares and actually make it publicly traded. I don't know if they have any other publicly traded shares, but they're going to take some of their own shares there and sell them off so they can buy the MotoGP, the motorcycle series, in their to help finance their $4.2 billion stake in MotoGP, which will give them about the 100 million shares, about $825 million of their brand, essentially, for Formula One. So if you ever wanted to go out and you wanted to buy some Formula One shares, they're going to be about $77.50, I think they said, per share. If you got if that's something you feel like you want to invest in. I don't really know how that works. So we also had a little bit of a slip of the tongue from Toto Wolff. So we're expecting, everybody's really expecting that Kimi Antonelli is going to be announced as the driver. I don't think there's any real guessing to it. It was supposed to be, or rumored to be, announced next week in Monza at the Italian Grand Prix. But he kind of comes out in an interview and he's talking about both his drivers and he wants to be as good as possible for next year for both his drivers. And that's George and Kimi. And then, cat's out of the bag. Hey, Kimi's driving for you next year. So all pretty much confirmed. I don't think he meant to do that. It's kind of a slip of the tongue. So just a little interesting little tidbit from this weekend. Excuse me. Um, Another one we had shortly after Logan Sargent destroys his car, an FP3. Right away, the rumors start flying. It seems to be, I mean, and James Vowles hasn't, as far as I know yet, James Vowles hasn't um, denied it. But we could potentially have a new driver in a Williams seat as early as the Italian Grand Prix. So rumors are that it could be Liam Lawson for, to get a little bit of experience in there. I don't necessarily see that being being in a Mercedes engine, but the more likely scenario is that Mick Schumacher might be making his return to F1 as a driver in a Williams seat. I mean, it seems to be that this is an all but confirmed rumor. I don't want to put too much stock into it. We don't know. I don't think that James is going to make some sort of heated kind of decision like this. But who knows? We could see it. It does seem to be, this damage they had to be a massively expensive accident. Their destruction of the car, basically. They were able to save as much as possible, but at some point, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision on, is it worth it keeping him here just because you said you were going to keep him here? I don't think so. I think he should be gone. I think it's, you can put, I don't necessarily know if I would put Mick in there. I mean, but we've only seen Mick in a Haas, so maybe he'd fare better in a Williams. Or at least I can only remember him in a Haas. I don't think he's ever driven for Williams, or at least in a practice session. I'm not sure. But I think it's time to make the change. You can't keep holding on to Logan. Logan can go drive somewhere else if he wants to go drive. It's not worth keeping him there. When you're a team, you're the smallest team on the grid. You have the least amount of money, or at least the least amount of team value on the grid. You got to make that change. You can't keep giving him this many chances, and he's not performing. So it's not like he's high risk, high reward. So we'll see. We'll see how that happens. We'll see how it plays out this week. If we actually do see him next week, Mick, in the next week, or in any of the last 9 races, I think we will, or at least we'll see a different driver in that Williams seat for the rest of at some point this year. And one last piece of news. I'm running through this real quick. I don't know how long it was going to be. It's really weird to talk by myself and not have some kind of banter to go back and forth and just give my opinions, which nobody probably cares about. But one of the biggest stories that actually came out of this weekend revolved around Haas. So, it didn't seem like much was going to happen around them. They were just kind of quiet. They had an okay qualifying session, and it comes out, I don't know if it was Saturday or if it was Friday. So Haas, before a few years ago, they did have a Russian sponsor, Uralkali. They also had a Russian driver, Nikita Mazepin, whose father owns or was part owner, I'm not exactly sure what the structure is, of Uralkali, a Russian company. And so as soon as the Russia invasion of Ukraine happened, F1 basically got rid of Uralkali. They got rid of Nikita Mazepin. Sanctions were imposed. They have the Uralkali has ties, and the Mazepins have ties to Putin and to the Russian government, so they got rid of them. And so it came out this weekend that Uralkali filed a motion to seize assets in a Dutch court so that they could recoup some money that they felt or that was owed to them. About $9 million US dollars was owed to them that hadn't been paid for whatever reason. It had to do with their sponsorship and money that they put into the team that they were expected to be paid back or to receive out of the team, and they hadn't received it yet. So apparently on Thursday, the bailiffs had gone to see Haas. It kind of stayed hush hush. Nobody really knew about it. I guess they had a pretty private meeting, as you would, anyways, during these legal proceedings. And they had to pay. So one of the things that came out of it was, would they be, if the assets were seized, excuse me, they wouldn't be able to leave the Netherlands, which means they wouldn't be in Italy for next week's Grand Prix in Monza. It actually got resolved pretty quickly. So, the Haas's defense for this was because of the sanctions imposed on these companies, on these Russian companies and these oligarchs and all that. They were unsure that they were trying to do the right thing. It doesn't seem like they just didn't want to pay them, which I'm sure they just didn't want to pay them anyways. But but they were also using this as, we didn't want, with these sanctions involved and that money possibly going to war efforts, we didn't want to, be in breach of some kind of illegal activity, or be a part of some sort of illegal activity by giving them this money. The Dutch court ruled that they should be paid. So on Saturday, I believe it was Saturday, Haas ended up paying them that $9 million. Now they pay them that $9 million here, but as of right now, they are still seized assets. They are still not allowed to leave the Netherlands because the Dutch courts don't open. They're not open till Monday. They need to get a stamp of approval saying, yes, you've paid. Yes, you can go. So basically, they're waiting for that. They haven't left yet. Everybody else has left. They're the only ones they're still there. So they're just waiting for that stamp of approval saying, yes, we've paid. Yes, you can go. And then they can get out of the country. Which was, it was pretty interesting turn of events. Never really heard of something like that where assets were seized and you couldn't leave the country. So, and it seems to be a little bit of, I don't want to say fallout, but kind of fallout from Gunther leaving. I'm sure he was part of that process. I'm sure Gene Haas also was part of that process and not wanting to pay or not giving that money to, obviously it's coming out of that team. But ultimately, I believe the person signing the checks would have probably come from a team perspective, because it is the Haas F1 team. So, kind of just a strange turn of events that more so confusion on the team's part, as trying to do the right thing without having to actually lose any money. And that was kind of it for the weekend. That was kind of all the news, all the racing events. Doing this here by myself sucks. It's weird. I don't like it. I don't know where to look. I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how to stop from just having verbal diarrhea. But we'll get into the rest of the episode, which is not much. I'm gonna do my fresh set and my dirty air of the weekend, which is also weird because I don't have anybody to work off of and have a conversation with. So my fresh set of the weekend is going to be Albon. Actually, you know what? My fresh set and my dirty air is going to be Albon. I could have picked a bunch of different things. Lando winning would have been an easy one. Dirty air for Logan destroying his car could have been an easy one. But they're both, Albon's qualifying is going to be both of mine. He had a great qualifying, a great Q3, Q1, Q2, and a great Q3 to put himself not even at just the bottom of the top 10, to put himself into 7th, 8th, excuse me. Um, in a Williams was a feat unto itself. And then to have that great showing and you're excited, and then to have that ripped away from you because the team effed up, um, it's just unacceptable. I don't know how you can make these changes. I mean, you're just coming out of the break. Should have been all said and done. If you're bringing an upgrade to the weekend, an upgrade should be an upgrade, but it should be. I don't know how you get these things wrong. Whether it was just some measurements or a weight thing, these are all things that are checked and double checked and triple checked, and it should never have happened. So to have him have a weekend that he did, and if he qualified in 18th or 17th, we're not talking about it. But he put his chipbox essentially into a position where he could do something, and it gets ripped away from him. So fresh set, good on you, Albon. Dirty air, you know, just get it together, Williams. And that's it. It's going to be a shorter episode this weekend. So I'll let you get back to your day and not have to listen to me awkwardly fumble through this the rest of the time. Next weekend we are in Italy. We're in Monza, and then we have another race right after that, which is it Azerbaijan? I forget which one it is now. But we have two race weeks in a row, but we're in Italy next week. And we will be back with our socials and doing food and all that. It's just been a little tough to coordinate the last couple weekends. So with that said, follow us, like us, subscribe on all the socials and all our platforms. We're on Instagram, we're on X, YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, at Fresh Set Podcast. Again, like, subscribe, comment, leave us questions, especially if we're going to do any more of these, which Sabrina might be doing one by herself. We can answer those questions for you on any of those episodes or any other time, really. But yeah, until next week, grab a fresh set. We'll see you later.